Om Shri Sai Ram. Sai Ram, dear brothers and sisters, welcome to the 21st edition of Samarpan program here at Sarvadharma Service Center in Farmingdale Borough, Howell Township, New Jersey, United States. Today, I have the honor to introduce our Samarpan speaker for the month, Shri Fize Mohammed. Brother Fize is a financial consultant and an accountant in private practice. He holds the position of assistant branch manager with a leading financial conglomerate in the Caribbean and is a past public relations officer of Toastmasters Caribbean. He has been a Bal Vikas Guru, which we call it here as an SSC teacher, for over 3 decades and previously held the positions of National Young Adult Coordinator from 1999 to 2003, National Devotional Coordinator from 2008 to 2010, and Deputy Central Coordinator of the West Indies from 2014 until 2021. He attended the first SSC training course for overseas devotees in Prasanthi Nilayam in the year 1981, the first EHV, Education and Human Values Conference, in 1986, the 3 World Youth Conferences held in 1997, 1999, and 2007, and had the privilege of speaking at Prasanthi Nilayam during the 1999 World Youth Conference and the 2015 World Conference. Since 1981, Brother Fize has been visiting Prasanthi for 37 times. Through Baba's grace and divine will, Brother Fize was instructed to speak on Sai experience and morality. He has given talks on Sri Satya Sai Baba and his teachings in the Caribbean, Venezuela, United States, Canada, England, and India. In November of 2009, a Radio Sai interview was conducted with Brother Fize related to his journey to Sai. In August 2011, this interview was also aired as a 3-part series on Radio Sai during the holy month of Ramadan. He currently conducts a weekly Sai radio program on the birth, life, and teachings of our beloved Lord, Bhagwan Shri Sathya Sai Baba, and a bi-weekly webinar where devotees can share their journey to Sai and experiences with our dear Bhagwan. Brother Fize resides in Trinidad with his wife and has 2 daughters who currently reside in Canada. For many of us who can remember, Brother Fize last visited our center in 2019 on the occasion of our Bhagwan's birthday, and he gave us a very exhilarating speech at that time. With this, I would like to invite Brother Fize to the podium and request him to share with us his experience with Swami, starting with his first introduction to Swami, considering his Islamic upbringing, for the next 70 minutes or so. Welcome, Brother Fize. Sai Ram.
I offer my most loving and humble pranams at the divine lotus feet of my dear Mother Sai, Bhagavan Shri Satya Sai Baba, embodiments of the divine Atma, embodiments of divine love, loving Sai Ram to one and all. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I begin in the name of Sai Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Brothers and sisters, at the tender age of 16, I started searching for God. Having been born in a Muslim home in the southern part of Trinidad, I also come from a broken home. My father was a chronic alcoholic. One of my eldest brothers was an alcoholic. One was a drug addict. One suffered with epilepsy. And there were 6 brothers and 1 sister. And against that background, I was planted in this particular family. And sometimes on a daily basis, there would be fights and quarrels, verbal and physical abuse in our home. But against that background, there was this pull towards spirituality. And the 3 questions that occupied my mind were, who am I? Why have I been placed on the face of the earth? And what is my divine purpose? I started reading books on the power of positive thinking, hoping to find the answers there, but realized that they only dabbled with the mind. And so I began to delve into the saints and sages. And I remember reading one of the first books, Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda in the 1970s. And then started studying the saints of Ramakrishna Paramahansa, Paramahansa Yogananda, Ramana Maharishi, and then the Sufi mystics of Islam, Jalaluddin Rumi and Imam Ghazali. And it was really, really amazing. I remember when I read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, every single word was pregnant with meaning. And I could feel during the words, coming through the words, the devotion of this great and wonderful saint. And immediately I became attracted to these experiences, these teachings of delving deeper into the self. But because of the state of the family situation, I built a little room separate from the house, where it became my sanctuary. And there I would spend hours or most of the day in reading, in contemplation, and in meditation. And there I began to feel this inner connection with the divinity within. But I had this wish, although coming from an Islamic background where God is considered to be formless, I wanted to experience a God with form, someone I could see and touch and feel and build a relationship with. And I know that the ultimate is the formless. We use the form to get to the formless. And so that was my fervent and sincerest prayer, to find a guru, a master, a divine guide. And one day in 1977, going to the mosque in my village, I meet a Muslim brother who was the Imam's son who lived next to the mosque. He was 15 years my senior, but very, very universal. He also was seeking to find the purpose of life and who he really is. Very, very universal, even though he was born in a strict Orthodox Muslim home. He had read many, many books and had a very universal outlook. And we became very good friends. In fact, he became my mentor, having had so much of knowledge and experience about divinity. And often we would spend hours discussing about spirituality, about the spiritual progress of who am I. And sometimes in the wee hours of the morning, we would have these discussions. And then after a while, he brings this book for me. And he says, Fize, I want you to read this book. When I look on the cover of the book, I see this bushy Afro-looking guy. And I said, "Who is this?" And very emphatically, my Muslim brother said, "This is God in human form." And then I blurted out, I said, "You must be crazy. How can you call him God? He's a mere mortal." Against the background that in Islam, God is formless. So you're not going to find any murtis or pictures in the mosque. And so I took that book home, Satyam Shivam Sundaram. And the moment I read the very first page, I became attracted to the teachings. And in one entire sitting, I read the entire book. And immediately, I felt a connection with Sri Satya Sai Baba. But amidst the divine attraction, there arose in me a great conflict. I could not reconcile the formless aspect of Allah with that of the form of Sri Satya Sai Baba. And then when Bhagwan said, "I am God, but you are God also," it also brought more confusion. And so I sought out the one or two Muslim devotees in Trinidad. And I sat with them for hours, asking them to share how they were able to reconcile the formless with the form. And brothers and sisters, this confusion, this conflict, this doubt, this uncertainty remained. I wrestled with it for months, until one day I decided to go back into the mosque and really pray to Almighty Allah. I prayed to Almighty Allah to show me. I asked Him to show me the truth of who this Satya Sai Baba is. And I was led back into the pages of the Holy Quran. In the Holy Quran, Allah says, "Allah is closer to you than your jugular vein." So that means He's within. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace, once said, "He who knows himself knows God." But the verse that really brought about a shift in my consciousness and awareness was the interpretation of one of the fundamental principles of Islam, the Declaration of Faith, which goes like this: "La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah." The orthodox translation of this verse is that there is no God but Allah, and the Holy Prophet Muhammad is His messenger. But the Sufi mystics, the mystical men of Islam, interprets the same verse not as there is no God but Allah, but that there is nothing but Allah. And so my doubts started to recede. And then I remember going to the first Sai Baba Center in the early 80s. And the very first satsang that I attended, the bhajans really captivated me. I felt so much of joy and inner bliss with these beautiful bhajans. And I started to go to Sai Baba centers in Trinidad. I began to read everything I could find my hand on Sri Satya Sai Baba. But the conflict, the doubt, the uncertainty remained. And so after 2 years, from 79 to 81, after reading and discussing and praying, I decided I have to go now and see for myself who this Sai Baba really is. And concurrently, at the same time, Swami had lovingly issued an invitation to all overseas Bal Vikas gurus to attend the first overseas, at that time called Bal Vikas Gurus Conference in Prashanti Nilayam, where he himself would preside over it. And even though I was not a Bal Vikas Guru, I was included as I requested to go on this particular trip. We arrived in Prashanti Nilayam on the morning of Guru Purnima, 1981. And the taxi pulled up just at the back of the Purnachandra Hall. We were ushered out very quickly And we sat at the very back of the Punachandra Hall, and I've never seen so many people gathered at one place. The entire Punachandra Hall was packed to capacity. And then suddenly there's a hush and a silence. And I see the curtains part, and this little 5-foot form floats across the stage in this orange gown. And immediately I feel a connection. And for the next 30 days of that trip, with every divine message, with every darshan, with every materialization of vibhuti, with every conversation I had with devotees, I was beginning now to have an admiration and belief in Sri Satya Sai Baba. And beloved devotees, I heard that Swami had built a mosque for the Muslims. So I inquired eagerly and enthusiastically where this mosque is. I would like to go and see. And I went to the mosque and did namaz. But there's a beautiful experience with this mosque. The Muslims had to trek many, many miles from Puttaparthi to the nearest mosque. During the holy month of Ramadan, this could be as much as 5 times per day in the blistering heat. And Swami, out of his love and compassion for the Islamic community, constructed a mosque of architectural brilliance. And on Eid-ul Fitr Day 1978, Swami inaugurated the mosque and gave a most wonderful, deeply moving message. And in part of that message, devotees, he made some profound statements that I'd like to share. Just one verse of that particular discourse that he gave. He says, Ramzan, or the holy month of fasting, is the month where the Holy Quran was revealed to the Holy Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace. It was a divine communication, a Bhagavad Vani reaching him through waves or tarangas of divine vibrations. The Vedas too were revealed in the same manner by God to the Rishis. The Bible, the Avesta, and the other great scriptures of other religions also had similar divine inspiration as the reason for their validity. Since the Quran originated from God, it cannot be changed or modified to suit changed conditions, says Swami. They are all eternal verities. The Quran contains expositions of the 5 vital principles, or pancha prana of human life: mercy, truth, sacrifice, love, and tolerance. These principles, really basic to the good life, are emphasized in all religious texts of humanity. If one assimilates the truth declared in the Quran, they can live in full concord with all others. And then Swami made this statement. He said, no religion praises violence or falsehood. And brothers and sisters, as we all know, Islam is a very misunderstood religion. There's a lot of misinterpretation and misinformation about this wonderful practical religion, which is part of the Sarva Dharma symbol of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba, where he speaks about the equal validity of all faiths. So brothers and sisters, when I came back home in 1981 from that very first visit, I held the vice president role of the youth group in the mosque where I used to attend. I used to lead the namaz and call the holy call to prayer called the azan. And during the holy month of Ramadan, one particular year, there's a night called the Laylatul Qadr night, where Muslims wake the entire night reading the Holy Quran and doing something called zikir, which is similar to jap, repeating the names and glories of Almighty Allah. And it is said in the holy month of Ramadan that the doors of hell are closed and the doors of heaven are opened. And in order to pass the time, I take a book of Satya Sai Baba with me in the mosque. And lo and behold, one of the mosque board members saw the book. And they knew that Brother Fize had gone to India to meet this holy man, Sai Baba. And they were not happy with that at all, because it contradicted the basis of Islam of not associating partners with Almighty Allah. So an emergency meeting was held to discuss Brother Fize's role in the mosque now that he has gone and meet this person. And they took a decision there and then. First of all, they took away my position as the Muslim vice president of the youth group. I was banned from leading the namaz and calling the holy call to pray. Then one brother said, "You are no longer a Muslim, you have changed your religion, you should leave now." One other brother told me, "Forget this Sai Baba and come and pray to the only true God, Allah." And then I told him, I said, "I prayed to Almighty Allah to show me the truth of who Sai Baba really is. And to that truth, I must remain loyal." And devotees, it really pained my heart, because these were brothers and sisters who I considered to be, I grew up with them in the mosque. They were like my parents, brothers and sisters, all growing up together. So this really, really hurted me tremendously. But my mother used to go to the mosque. And after a while, I used to drop her and pick her up rather than going into the mosque. And after a while, I was excommunicated from that particular mosque. But I could understand, against the background of their belief system, why they would behave in such a way. But Bhagwan then, after a couple of years, devised, through his divine love and divine orchestration, an incident that would break the ice and bring about a softening of their minds in the mosque. Having now been giving messages in Trinidad and Tobago, one day in one of the gatherings, there were a few Muslim brothers and sisters from that mosque who had been invited. And one day I get a call from an elderly gentleman in the mosque. He was celebrating his 65th birthday. And he said, "Brother Fize, I've heard you speak. And I am celebrating my 65th birthday in the mosque. The same mosque I was literally thrown out of." And he said, "I would like you to do the Fitia message." And then I said, "Hey, Bhagwan." I prayed to Bhagwan as to how to navigate the situation. And the internal guidance that came was that I started to then collect teachings of Bhagwan that were universal in nature. Love all, serve all, help ever, hurt never. Hands that help are holier than lips that pray. A pure thought from a pure heart is better than a prayer. And I pieced together with Bhagwan's grace and divine will a message and integrated it with the life and teachings of the Holy Quran and the life of the Holy Prophet Mohammed. And devotees, after that message was given in the mosque, the self-same mosque board members who threw me out of the mosque, they came to me and they said, "Brother Fize, what beautiful message you've given. Where did you get these beautiful quotes that they had never heard before?" And then I had to be very careful with my words. I said, "There's a great humanitarian walking the face of the earth, transforming lives and bringing about a betterment in society." And then their hearts and minds began to soften a little towards the teachings of Sri Satya Sai Baba. So brothers and sisters, this is how I came into contact with my beloved Lord. And at this point in time, from this chapter, I'd like to sing an Islamic song that reflects the oneness of Almighty Allah. You know, one Sufi mystic once said, "You are not a drop in the ocean, you are the ocean in the drop." Bhagwan says that you must affirm, "I am God, I am not different from God. I am the infinite supreme, the one reality. I am Satchit Ananda Swarupa. I am Om Tat Sat Om. We are the very embodiments of the divine. We are potential avatars. We are gods walking the face of the earth. And this song reflects this. And I'm sure many of you all have heard it before. And we now include this in our devotional singing in Trinidad, where we have Muslim, Christians, and Hindus. We have Muslim songs, we have bhajans, and we have hymns. And this is how it goes. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. Subhanallah, 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 Subhanallah. La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah. This beautiful song that glorifies Almighty Allah, my dear brothers and sisters, it simply means La ilaha illallah, there is nothing but Allah. Muhammadur Rasulullah means the Prophet of Islam. Holy Prophet Muhammad is the Prophet of Islam. Subhanallah, glory be to God. So very, very simple and very beautiful indeed. So brothers and sisters, in 1983, there's a public holiday in Trinidad called Labor Day. It's on the 19th of June every year. And on the 18th of June, we had a bhajan session at a devotee's home. And because the next day was a holiday, we sang bhajans throughout the night until the wee hours of the morning. And I was transporting 3 devotees in my vehicle back to their homes, when around 5 to 5:30 in the morning, I get into this massive motor vehicle accident. Another car coming in the opposite direction at a tremendously fast speed crashed into mine. The impact was so great that the front of the car almost reached the windscreen. The windscreen shattered and the splinters went into my face and chest, and I began to bleed profusely. The steering hit me in my chest and I began to cough up blood. And after a while, I passed out. I lost consciousness for a couple of days. When I was regaining consciousness in the hospital, I could hear very faintly devotees around me chanting mantras. You know, when you're about to die, they want to chant the mantras and pour tulsi water in my mouth. And I could vaguely hear them saying that Brother Fize is not going to live. He's been unconscious for a couple of days. But my beloved Lord Swami had different ideas. And 2 most amazing things happened in this accident. One, I felt absolutely no pain. And the second thing is that the memory of the accident was totally removed from my memory. Up to this day, if I sit down and I try to recollect the accident details, the only thing that comes to mind is singing bhajans at that devotee's home and then waking up in the hospital. So for whatever reason, the trauma of that accident, the memory was removed from myself. And after a couple of days, I was discharged and sent home. And in the loving care of my mother, I got better. Then I went to Puttaparthi with a group of Trinidadian devotees, 45 of us, in October 1983. And I get my first interview with beloved Mother Sai. When Swami said, go, I ran very quickly and sat very close to his feet. And as the perfect host, after he put on the lights and the fan and materialized the vibhuti and made sure everyone was happy, he sat in his chair. And this is the first conversation, the first time on a physical level that Swami is talking to me. And with so much of love and compassion in his eyes, he looked at me and he said, it was I who saved you from that accident. And then he did his hand like this and he said, you drive too fast. Start early, drive slowly, reach safely. And then with a gentle wave of his hand, because I'm looking upwards now, I see a pendant actually crystallize in his hand and he holds it. And thinking he's giving the person at the back of me, I bend my head and Swami said, no, you. And I put my right hand out and Swami drops this pendant into my hand. He takes a small group into the inner interview room. And then devotees from Trinidad were asking, Brother Fize, please show us. And as I begin to put my hand and show them, Swami comes back out of the inner interview room. This could be no less than a minute after he went in. And he does like this. No exhibition. And so I've kept this pendant always inside. And it has saved me from so many calamities. Swami says that when I give you these things, whenever there's difficulties in your life and you hold on to it and pray, it sends a message directly to him and he comes to your rescue. So brothers and sisters, on one of the trips, I took my mother with me. She has been to Puttaparthi 3 times. It was my dream, my goal to take my mother at the feet of Mother Sai. And the reason why, my dear brothers and sisters, is that coming from a broken home, my mother sacrificed her happiness, her well-being, to keep the family together because of my father's behavior. Every day, every morning, I would see her praying. And even though she believed in Almighty Allah, she loved Jesus the Christ. Because in Islam, we believe in Jesus as the prophet. And she would pray to Jesus for one thing, to restore the unity and harmony in our family. That would bring her the greatest joy. And often when my father would quarrel and behave badly, it used to really hurt me to see my mother in tears. But she kept persevering and sacrificing for many years to keep the family together. And when I saw this, one day I prayed to Bhagwan and I said, Swami, I will give my life to your service, but you must promise me one thing, that you would restore the unity and unity and harmony in our family for the sake of my mother's happiness. And lo and behold, devotees, after a few months, miracles started to happen in our home. My father one day said he wanted to stop drinking and join the Alcoholic Anonymous, which is an organization that helps you to give up drinking. My eldest brother, my father influenced him as well to go to the program. My brother gave up drugs. One day he had this long hair right down to his waist. And one day he brings a scissors for me and he says, I want you to cut my hair. And I said, what? He says, yes, from today I'm giving up drugs. So my father stopped drinking, my brother gave up drugs, my eldest brother stopped drinking. And the beauty of it beloved devotees, to my mother's so happy about this. My father then joined Alcoholic Anonymous and started giving talks, community talks throughout the country, helping others now to give up this very deadly disease. You all may not know, but alcohol is the only legal drug because it's available to everyone over a certain age, that has caused the most damage than any other illegal drug there is, because it not only damages you, it damages your entire family. And when I saw these beautiful miracles of Swami taking place, my mother became happier and happier by the day. And then 2 of my brothers, I encouraged them, and they went to Puttaparthi. That again was the grace of Mother Sai. But I really wanted my mother to meet Sai Baba. I felt that that was my greatest joy and the highest duty a son can do, to bring the mother at the feet of the Lord. And so she made 3 visits to Puttaparthi, and on one of the visits, Swami granted her an interview and blessed her and said, I know what used to happen in your home. Husband quarrels and fights. Swami says, I will take care. And then he materialized some hot prasadam and blessed my mother. And it brought the greatest joy to my heart when Swami did that. So brothers and sisters, coming back to the story, on one of the trips after Puttaparthi, my mother wanted to do a little shopping. We used to take groups from Trinidad to Puttaparthi. And what I've realized is especially the ladies, they want to buy the whole of India and put it in 2 suitcases. So we were in Delhi in this underground shopping area called the Palika Bazaar, which some of you all may know, with hundreds of shops. So my mother said, take the pouch with the passport, the tickets, the money, etc., because don't leave it in the room. This was her first trip, and she said, we are so far away from home. She wanted to make sure that these documents were kept safe. So I took that pouch with me while we were shopping. And then in one shop, she sees a particular kurta, and she says, I like that one for you. Why don't you try it on? And I rested the pouch on the counter, and I tried on the kurta, and I forgot the pouch. After we had gone to 3 more stores, I suddenly remembered, and I realized I didn't have the pouch. And I frantically ran back to all the shops, but no one had seen the pouch. You know, if you lose something in India, it's 1 billion people. My mother started to quarrel. You are so careless, so negligent. Look how far away we are from home now. What is going to happen? You know, after a while, it became like mantras in my ears. And then I said, Ma, give me a few minutes. And I walked to a very quiet place in that underground area. And I held on to Swami's pendant and I began to pray, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram, Om Shri Sai Ram. And I really focused as much as I could on the form of my beloved Lord. And devotees, after 3 or 4 minutes, I opened my eyes and something miraculous happened. Out of the hundreds of people milling around and shopping, I see this little child, he could be no more than 6 years old, dressed in immaculate white. And he's walking out of the crowd straight towards me. And when he's very close, I notice he has the pouch in his hand. And he walks up to me and he said, Sir, did you lose this? And then immediately I became so happy, I frantically opened it to make sure passport, ticket, and money, every single thing was intact. And when I looked up, there was nobody there. And I said, Swami, thank you for your grace. Beloved devotees, just one more experience with this pendant and this Sai Krishna who plays so many leelas with our lives. I was on a trip to Barcelona with my family, And we were invited to a satsang at a Sai Baba center there. And while doing the message, there was one person translating from English into Spanish. After the satsang was completed, one devotee lost his car keys. And in his car was his house keys. So he could not even get home. He says it was a big bunch because it had so many keys on it. So we all looked throughout the center. They lifted up the mats and the sheets and nobody could find it. But during the message, I shared the same pendant experience. And then one devotee came up to me and said, Brother Fize, why don't you pray to Sai Baba with your pendant? And I never thought of it. And then I went quietly in a little corner. And again, I held on the pendant of Swami and I prayed, Om Shri Saram, focusing on his divine form. And then after that, I said, let us continue looking. And devotees on their altar, they have a huge life-size picture of Swami. And as I was walking towards the picture, I suddenly feel in my left kurta pants pocket, something falls into it. And when I put my hand in the pocket and I pulled it out, was this big bunch of keys. And the devotee said, Sairam, that is my keys. He was so grateful. He was so happy. We all went at Bhagwan's feet and we thanked Swami for his grace and his blessings. And this devotee was so thrilled. His joy was indescribable. He had so much of gratitude. And he said, thank you, Brother Fize. And I said, no thanks to me. It is all through the grace and blessings of Mother Sai. This is the power. This is the love. This is the compassion of Mother Sai. Brothers and sisters, in that very first interview, there was an elderly gentleman who was like a father figure to me in the Sai organization in Trinidad. In that very first interview in 1983, he got up and he said, Swami, don't you think we should get Brother Fize married? And then immediately I said in my mind, I said, oh my God, what madness is this? See, at 16, I was searching for God. I wanted a God that I could see and touch and hold and feel. And now I had found that person, that guru, that divine master in Sri Satya Sai Baba. And I felt now my spiritual life had just begun. So I was very preoccupied now with the spiritual part and awakening this divinity within. Marriage was the furthest thing from my mind. I was just 23 years old at that time. So when he made this comment, I jumped up and I said, Swami, the only way I am getting married is if you choose the girl. Because you know, marriage is serious business. And I wanted to do what Swami would want for me rather than I, because I don't know what is good for me. I don't know my past, my present, my future. Swami sees the whole picture. And if he says yes, it will be yes. If he says no, it will be no. And when I asked him that question, he said, nahi. Let parents decide and I will bless. And you all know how important and the emphasis Swami places on parents and how we should honor, respect, love, and serve them. So that's 1983. My mother decided on the girl 8 years after. But I wanted to make sure now. So I take a picture of the girl, I write a letter, I jump on a plane and I head off to Puttaparthi to get Swami's, not his blessings, but his approval. There's a difference between blessings and approval. If you put out something to bless, Swami will bless it. It doesn't mean that he has approved. Swami was in Whitefield. I spent 2 weeks, and every single darshan, when I would put the letter to him, he would totally ignore me. After a while, somebody said, this is like the ignore Upanishad. But on the last darshan, you know the Sevadals allow you to sit in front if you are leaving. I then challenged Swami. I put the letter in my hand, protruding a few inches above my fingers. And I said, Swami, if you take this letter from me today, I know you would have approved of the contents. And if you don't, I am on my way to self-realization. And in Whitefield in those days, this is October 1991, they had the beautiful shed and the beautiful Krishna Murti. Swami starts to walk. When he's about 15 feet away from me, he stops. He turns around and he begins to walk back to the mandir. And then I happily now take the letter and put it away. And all of a sudden, Swami stops. He turns around and he looks exactly where I was sitting. And instantly, he's in front of me. And he just does like this. He plucks the letter from my hand. I begin to cry and fall on his feet. He takes his hand and he puts it on my head. And he said, very happy, very happy. Devotees, that was October 1991. I go back home and I get married in 1 month. 24th of November 1991. I invite the whole Sai organization in Trinidad. Over 800 devotees came. But it was costly. And Swami had said in that 1983 interview, let parents decide and I will bless. So we wanted to go for his blessings, but we had no money. So I prayed fervently to him to open a way. And this is how this wonderful Lord orchestrated the way it would happen. We used to travel to India via Air India out of London or out of New York. And in the Caribbean, they had a promotion where over the last 3 months, all the people who had traveled with Air India, they would put their names in this basket, and whichever name was pulled out would win a free trip to India. And I get a call from an Air India representative in New York. Are you Mr. Fize, Mohammed? Yes, ma'am. You've just won a free trip to India. And I said, Bhagwan, thank you, Lord. So we had to get 1 ticket. But devotees' marriage was not an easy road for Brother Fize. You see, first 31 years of my life, it was about I. Now when wife comes, it has to move from I to we. And then when children comes, is we. So I had to move from selfishness, as Swami says, to selflessness. And that adjustment period at times was difficult to the point where my wife and I would have many quarrels. When we reached Puttaparthi, the most amazing thing happened. Normally in the room that they allocate, the room is unfurnished. So you have to furnish it yourself. This particular room that was allocated by the accommodation office, it was like a wedding suite. It had a table with fresh flowers and beautiful pictures of Swami adorned the walls. And I said, Swami, wow, I've been coming here so many times. I've never gotten a room like this. It was as if Swami was really welcoming us. On the 16th of December 1991, Swami granted us what I call the wedding interview. And he took us into the inner interview room. And God never forgets his promises. Even though it was 8 years ago, the very first thing that Swami does, he takes the wedding rings and he puts it in his left hand. And then he takes his right hand and 3 times, I bless, I bless, I bless. Then he looks at me and he said, you temper. The quarreling. He looks at my wife and he said, you hot. And then he puts these 2 fingers together and he says, up, down, but always together. Then he gave a little talk about marriage. He said, marriage is 23 hours and 55 minutes of pain and 5 minutes of pleasure. First 2 years, wife nice. Next 2 years, wife is knife. And I said in my mind, I said, Swami, you are telling me that after I have taken this step. Then he said, W-I-F-E. He said, if you get a bad wife, the W stands for worries invited forever. And if you get a good wife, is wisdom invited forever. But beloved devotees, my wife has been my greatest blessing in my life. She has been what the song says, the wind beneath my wings. She has been the stabilizing force in my life. And you know, Swami has said, women have more devotion than men. They have more spiritual qualities than men. They can multitask things that men can never do. They have greater self-control and tenacity. That is why, look, the very first institution that Baba built was not the boys. He built the Anantapur Girls College first. And women have a very important role, he says, to play when it comes to the betterment of society through the practicing of human values. So they have to be revered and honored and respected as the Lakshmis of the home. So this idea, you know, that we have, that women should be subservient, they all have their roles, Swami said, to play. And I'll share a dream my wife had that confirmed this blessing in my life. She had a dream where we were walking up a stairway to heaven, and she was leading and holding my hand step by step and taking me to the top. And when we reached to the top, Swami was at the top of the staircase, and she took my hand and she placed it in Swami's hand. And that confirmed to me the role that she has to play in this incarnation in my life. So whenever I give talks, I tell the husbands, listen to your wives. They will take you to heaven. So brothers and sisters, sometimes, you know, even in the quarrels, you know, I would sometimes feel that my wife is nagging me. She's pestering me. But deep down inside, I know she does all of this only for my greatest good and well-being. She has that at her heart. When I'm leaving the house, I have to pass through inspection. You know, my kurta must be properly ironed. She makes sure my hair is combed, that you've put cream on your hands, you know, this kind of thing. Because she says, you're going to stand in front, you're representing Swami. So over the years, we've had a lessening of the quarrels now. And now in our lives, this year, on the 24th of November this year, we would have been married for 32 years. We've had the ups and downs that Swami said, but we've always been together. And I'd just like to share one or two guidelines that we have agreed upon in our marriage. Swami had said, first, there must be understanding and then adjustment in marriage. So we have an agreement now where if there's a misunderstanding in the home between us, it must never go beyond the sunset. So whatever it is has to be resolved before the day finishes, so that we ensure harmony and unity in the home. The second thing is, if we are having a debate on something, do not bring up things from the past. The third thing is that we should not take each other for granted. That we must value each other and the roles that we play as a marriage team. And now, devotees, sometimes what I will do, and this is what keeps marriages together, it cannot be kept on its own. We have to work at it. The third thing is, whatever happens between us, we must communicate. Let's discuss it and put it out into the open and then come to a decision, a remedy. And now sometimes if I go to the mall and I see a dress or a sari or shalwar that she likes, I would buy it, even though there's not a special occasion, and bring it for her. And she would be so happy. This is not a special occasion. and look, you've brought this. Or sometimes I may buy a yellow rose, which is the color, her favorite color, and bring it for her. And this is what will make her happy. So little things like these has allowed our marriage to stay strong. But most importantly, it is the uniting power, the grace, the blessings, the teachings of our beloved mother, Sai. You know, there's a lot of humor in this marriage, you know. Before marriage, they were two. After marriage, they said the two shall become one. The problem is, which one? And a devotee sends me an email. This is the best description of marriage, definition of marriage I've ever heard. And this is what it says. Before marriage, man is incomplete. After marriage, he's finished. Now, if you look at that statement very carefully, you see the power of the wife. Because if before marriage he's incomplete and after marriage he's finished, he's the finished product. On one of my trips to Puttaparthi, we were traveling British Airways from London to Bangalore. And I see the air hostess serving this gentleman who was dressed in a jacket and tie, very executive looking. But he had a wedding ring on his wrong finger. So she said, "Sir, aren't you wearing your wedding ring on your wrong finger?" He said, "Yes, I married the wrong lady." And the last one I will share, and I hope the young adults, we don't have young adults in the audience. Be all young, okay. You know, two young adults just got married, and again, the adjustment period can be a little bit difficult. So one day they had a really bad quarrel. And the husband was so mad, he went into his room, took a picture of his wife, put it at the back of the door, and he started throwing darts at it. But every time he would throw the darts, he would miss the picture. So his wife was cooking in the kitchen. And she said, "Honey, how are you doing?" And he said, "Just missing you." You know, Swami, what I love about my beloved Lord is that he puts a lot of humor in what he says, but they have very deep lessons. How much time do I have? Oh, okay. In a couple of our trips, after moving from the ladies' side to the men's side, someone asked Swami, in fact, the first thing that happened, we had a lady that was a little bit oversized. And in the group, she got up and she said, "Swami, Swami, interview." And Swami looks at her in a very wicked way, a very naughty way, and says, "Where will you pass? Interview room door, so small." Then he reaches the men's side and we said, "Swami, when are you leaving?" He says, "Ask the ladies. They know everything." So in this humor, there's a lot of powerful messages. I remember he's telling an attorney that he granted an interview. He said, "Where do you practice? Above the bar or below the bar?" Because he used to take his little drink, you know. So devotees, in that same interview, that wedding interview, Swami looks at me and he says, "How many children do you want?" So as a father, I jump up and I say, "Swami, I want a boy first." He says, "Why do you want boy? Girls are better. Girls take better care of parents. They have more love, more devotion, more consideration." Then I said, "Swami, let it be your will." He said, "Acha, I gave one boy, one girl." Then two girls came. And then in the next interview, I said, "Swami, you said you give one boy, one girl. Now two girls have come." And he does like this in true Trinidadian style. He said, "What can I do?" And then he looked at me very seriously and he said, "I give very good children." Beloved devotees, they are 29 and 30 now. They live and work in Canada. And when I was an SSC guru, SSC teacher, when they were that small, I would take them with me to the class. So they have a very solid foundation in SSC, in human values. And then they became very much involved with the young adults. And today, they are Swami's children. And they embody the values in their own particular way, because the young people today, they process Swami's teaching sometimes differently to what we expect. But they have their own inner contact and connection with Swami. And to show you, devotees, of how SSE is such an important activity in the Sai organization, every single Sunday in our home back in Trinidad, we used to have the family satsang. And we never compromised it because we value the importance of it. The family that prays together stays together. And every Sunday, the children and the parents had responsibilities of preparing the altar, as you all have done here, picking the flowers, getting everything together, lighting the diya. And then we would give one child every week the responsibility of preparing a value-based message. And so the format of that family satsang would be 3 opening prayers: a Muslim prayer, a Christian prayer, a Hindu prayer. We would sing bhajans, qasidas, Islamic songs and hymns. We would do a short period of meditation, and then the child will give a value-based message. Then they will do arti and touch the feet of the parents, and then we'll do the closing exercises of the vibhuti. Now, devotees, when you look at these activities, if you analyze each one of them, you will see the tremendous benefit it has to the family. First of all, we are coming together as a family, as a unit. Secondly, by doing the prayers, they are understanding the Sarva Dharma value and the equal validity of all faiths. By singing the different songs, they're looking at the universality of Sai's message. By doing that silent sitting, they now have the ability to go within and connect with the inner Sai. By giving a talk, preparing it and delivering it, it develops self-confidence. And when they touch the feet of the parents, they're showing reverence and respect. So many values emanate from the family satsang. But what used to happen is, after the family satsang, we would have an informal chat now, where my wife would make a pot of tea and some cake, and then we would have a discussion where we allowed the children to express themselves. We tell them, we value what you all have to say because you all are part and parcel of the family. And so they would be very much involved, and we would go in a circle, and each person will then give their contribution. And then in one of the meetings, my daughter said, Amrita is her name, she said, "Dad, you are not a good guru." And I said, "How come?" She said, "The last time we were going Balvikas, you went through the red light." So I folded my palms and I said, "I am so sorry. Daddy will never do that again." So sometimes your children become your gurus. That is why parents, we have to set good examples. You can't tell them not to lie and you are lying. You can't tell them don't smoke and you are smoking. A child will follow not so much what you say, but what you do. So we have to live the message. We have to walk the talk. We have to be the example we want them to become. Again, the impact of Balvikas: once a month, we would make sandwiches as a family and go into the needy areas, and the children themselves at a tender age would give the sandwiches and a drink to those people who were hungry and homeless. And one day, while in Canada, I get a picture from Amrita with 400 tins of food. And I said, "Amrita, what is this?" She said, "Dad, this is Halloween time. And instead of collecting chocolates and toffees, they collected tins of food from every home. And they collected 400 tins of food and gave it to a nearby soup kitchen so that they can prepare hot meals for those who were hungry and in the cold. And this really, really touched my heart. And I knew that it came from the family satsang and the SSC classes that we had. The most important activity to me is the SSC classes because it deals with the smaller ones, the fertile minds. And Baba says good parents plus good teachers will bring forth good students. So parents, we have a very sacred responsibility, a serious one, by setting good examples for our children. Going back to the accident devotees, sometimes when Swami makes a statement, it is so far-reaching that sometimes years after, the meaning and significance dawns on you. When Swami told me it was I who saved you from the accident, it was not only a physical saving, it was a spiritual saving, and it was also financial in nature. Because out of the accident, the other party sued me for $200,000 in damages. At that time, I didn't have $200. And so they brought an action in the court against me. And we had to go to court now to settle the matter. But here's the predicament. I could not remember, as I said, anything about the accident. So I got a dream from Swami to visit a lawyer who was a Sai devotee, an attorney in Trinidad. And she told me, she said, Brother Fize, if we are going into the court, you have to give evidence of how the accident happened. And I told her, I cannot remember. And then I told her, I said, I am not going to lie. I am going to tell the truth as I remember it. And whatever happens, I will accept the consequences. But I'm not telling any lies. Then she said, well, then we have no case. Because if you cannot remember what has happened and the other party then gives evidence, then the court will rely only on that. So I said, let it be. I place it in Swami's hands. And devotees, I remember that day when we had to go to court. Look at the grace of Bhagwan. I took 2 packets of vibhuti with me, went to court with the attorney, and I just placed the 2 packets of vibhuti in his pocket. They were also Sai devotees. And as I was walking into the courtroom, I see the other party. They had a lawyer, they had doctors, they had firemen who had witnessed the accident, and they had a whole set of people ready and willing to give evidence of the damages they had received. I was walking alone. My wife went to the bank to take out the little bit of money that we had. And when we went into the court and I was put on the stand to give evidence, I gave only what I could have remembered. And then the judge asked for the other witnesses from the other side to come. And so they called the person's name once and nobody came. They called the person's name twice and nobody came. Then they went into the corridor of the court and they called the person's name loudly the 3rd time and nobody came. And do you know what the judge did then? He says, well, there's nobody to refute Mr. Mohammed's evidence, so this case is dismissed. And I said, Bhagwan, thank you for grace. When I was coming out of the courtroom, I broke down and I cried. And my wife had just come back from the bank. And she says, why are you crying like this? I said, you wouldn't believe the miracle of our beloved Mother Sai. So sometimes, devotees, the statements that he makes is so far-reaching. This courtroom situation took place about 8 years after the accident took place. And it was all about Swami's statement. It was I who saved you, spiritually, physically, financially. And as such devotees, whatever I do in my spiritual life now is just a repayment out of gratitude for what this wonderful Lord has done for me and my family. And Swami once said, devotion is nothing but gratitude. And I want to share a story of how Swami himself manifested gratitude and bestowed it on one particular devotee. And I'll end with this. There was a tribal lady in Puttaparthi who used to sell ground nuts just outside the Ganesha gate. Her children had abandoned her. And from time to time, she would come into the ashram for darshan. And one day, Swami walked up to her and said, Amma, how are you doing? Are you making enough to get by? And she said, Swami, some days I make, and then other days I go to bed hungry. And then Swami said, why don't you come and work in the ashram? She said, Swami, I don't know anything. I don't have any skills. All I can do is sell these nuts. And then she said, Swami, I can wash the wares in the canteen. And then Swami said, done, come from tomorrow. And so she came and started enthusiastically and devotedly to wash the wares, because she knew also that Swami had provided a way that she could get money to survive. And then her duties included that every morning she would take 2 buckets and go to the Chitravati river and fill them. And she would do this every morning between 3 or 3:30 in the morning. And she would pour the water in a boiler that used to make the water warm for Swami to take his bath. And this went on for a while. And one day she got critically ill. Her appendix ruptured inside. And she was experiencing excruciating pain. Swami summoned the driver to take her to Bangalore to a doctor. But as the car was pulling out of the ashram, Swami said, wait, I will go with her because she will not make it to Bangalore. And in the extreme agonizing pain she was experiencing ever so often, Swami would comfort her throughout the whole journey. When they reached Bangalore, it was a public holiday, so all the doctors' offices were closed. Swami directed them to one particular home where there was a doctor. And when he saw Swami in front of him, he was so touched. So he decided to perform the operation. He said, Swami, I have no anesthetic. Swami says, don't worry, I will take care of it. And Swami materialized the vibhuti, and the operation was performed. It took about 3 hours. And you know what Swami did? Swami, there was a little wooden bench just outside the operating room. And Swami sat on that bench for 3 hours. 1 or 2 devotees came and said, Swami, please, my home is just close by. Why don't you come and take rest and come back? And Swami said, no, I have to stay here. Because when she wakes up, she will not know where she is. She's a very simple lady. And Swami spent 3 hours sitting on that wooden bench. And when the operation was performed and she regained consciousness, Swami was at her bedside. And when she found out what Swami did, she said, Swami, you did that for me? Why did you spend 3 hours sitting on this hard bench? And then Swami told her so lovingly, he says, was there ever a day that I did not get water to take my bath? Was there never a day when the dishes in the kitchen were not cleaned? I am, out of gratitude, bestowing you this blessing. That is the compassion, devotees, of our beloved Mother Sai. So I will do a quotation of Swami, one of my favorite ones, and then I'll just sing a song and bring this message to an end. Swami gave this message to the college students in 1977, and this is what he said. No matter where you go, always do your duty as you see it. And know that I will be there inside you, guiding you every step of the way. In the years to come, you will experience me in many different manifestations of my form. You are my very own, dearer than dear to me. I will protect you like the eyelids protect the eyes. From this moment on, do not hanker after anything. Do your duty with unwavering love, seeing all as God. Be patient. In time, everything will be given to you. Be happy. There's no need to worry about anything. Whatever happens, know that this avatar has willed it so. There is no force on earth which can delay for an instant the mission for which this avatar has come. And you will all have your parts to play in the new golden age which is coming. And devotees, this particular verse that I'm quoting now comes from a book called My Beloved by Charles Penn, where he received this message from Swami. Be about my work, my beloved bhaktas. Your breath will carry the scent of the blossoms of heaven. Your example will be that of angels. Your joy will be my joy. Brothers and sisters, just before I close, I know we had promised to share a little bit about the Trinidad experience. Now, in Trinidad, we have 1.4 million people. And we have approximately 40 Sai Baba centers, one in almost every village in the country. You can go to a Sai Baba satsang every single day of the week in Trinidad. So if you want to get liberation quickly, we have about 3 to 4 radio stations that broadcast the message of Sai Baba 1 hour per week on the station. Every single Saturday, we screen on national television a video depicting the mission, the birth, and the teachings of Satya Sai Baba. Every single Sunday, we build a house for a needy family in 2.5 hours. And this project is done mostly and primarily by the young adults. And Swami himself blessed this particular project. And these houses can withstand hurricane winds of 125 miles an hour. And we've built houses in Haiti when they had the earthquake. Recently, in St. Vincent, there was a volcanic eruption. And homes, hundreds of homes were destroyed because of the ash. 108 devotees went across from Trinidad. And they built, I'm not too sure the exact amount, we built about 25 homes in 3 days. You have to see it to believe it, devotees. And it's not about building houses, it's about sharing love. So brother, can we go back to the first slide? And I'll just guide you now. In Trinidad, this is an example of a family living in a dilapidated home. Broken down. So we do an assessment and we identify the need. And this is a family of 6 living in this house. So then we know whether it is a 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom house that has to be built. And it would have a kitchen and it would have bathroom, toilet facilities, and fully furnished. So the next slide. What we do first is that we cast a concrete foundation, if you notice, depending on the size of the house, and we let it cure for 1 week. The next slide. Then on the next Sunday at 6 a.m., we begin by chanting the Gayatri Mantra. And about 40 to 50 devotees, primarily young adults, they come together, and each one specializes in a different aspect of the building of the homes. Some on the roof, some on the ground, some on the windows. And you see, you have devotees on top. And then in the next slide, you will see the finished product where the house is completed. It's burglar-proof with curtains and fully furnished. And then we bless the house. And devotees, it's amazing. The recipients of the house are so grateful. They break down and cry. And they said, only God can do something like this. Every single Sunday, we build a house like this for a needy family. Sometimes we may have 2 teams building 2, depending on the need. Only through the grace and blessings of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. Baba once said to a Trinidadian devotee, there is a little island in the Caribbean that is the jewel of my eye. It's Trinidad. So I'm inviting all of you all to come and experience the love, the unity, and the seva in Trinidad and Tobago. There's also one particular center in the middle of the city that every single day they prepare and serve 500 meals to the needy and homeless on the streets. This has been going on for the last 3 years, every single day. Over 300,000 meals have been prepared. And this seva has been so expansive that other people in the community, non-Sai people, have been so inspired that they come to the kitchen now and give of their time and their resources because they're inspired by the seva. Doctors, lawyers, people from hotels, organizations, they come now. They donate water and foodstuffs. And this project of feeding the homeless has now spread throughout the country in different parts. And Swami has said one of the greatest sevas is to feed the hungry. So devotees, this is a little summary of what happens in Trinidad and Tobago. So with this, I would like to express gratitude and appreciation, first of all, to my beloved Lord Sai, and to the Sai in each and every one of you all for creating this opportunity so that we can share and receive the love of Mother Sai. May Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba continue to bless and guide each and every one of us. And as we aspire on the spiritual path, let our fervent and heartfelt prayer be that we will ceaselessly strive to be wonderful examples of His divine teachings of love and selfless service. Jai Sai Ram.
That was such a mesmerizing talk by Brother Fize Mohammed. His voice is also so soothing. And I must say that when we listen to these experiences, brother, it actually revives our own feelings for Swami and devotion. It's like a lamp that is drying up. You pour more oil in it and you raise the wick up. So that's the feeling you get when we are listening to these talks. So thank you so much for sharing such wonderful experiences of yours. I will quickly share some of the key points that you mentioned here today. It's amazing you started off with reading Autobiography of a Yogi. It's a book that has inspired even myself. I started reading that first, and I don't read many books. It turns out even Steve Jobs was reading that book all along in his life, even in the last book that he read before dying. So it's a book that has triggered the spark of devotion in many people, and you're one among them. And it's amazing to see how you have come in touch with Swami first time, visiting Puttaparthi in 1981, and getting married again 1991, I guess, 10 years later. But most importantly, when you're young, you you faced a great challenge with your brothers and sisters in the mosque, literally being, excommunicated from the brothers, but yet you stuck to the message of Swami and you were able to turn their hearts with Bhagavan's powerful quotes in it. And that was, to me, a very powerful thing, to resist such a community and believing in Bhagavan. So the understanding you had is very powerful about Bhagavan and the love that you carried through him, which transformed their hearts through you. And it's also amazing how with Bhagavan's materialization of the pendant that he gave you, how prayers have helped you at different points in time in life. You shared about an accident, a complete amnesia of the accident, bookended by bhajans and hospital, pretty much, and how you faced the trial in the courthouse. And Bhagavan has stayed with you at the time of the accident and after the whole thing. And I think what has come across is the power of prayers and the faith and the belief that you nurtured inside made Bhagavan come back to you all the time. And it motivates all of us in, revive that kind of feelings inside to make sure we pray to him every time at work or whatever we're doing, all the challenges we face. You also talked about marriage and gave some very nice tips. A family that prays together stays together. That's a great statement you made. And talking about how to understand your spouse and then adjust to the spouse. And then mutual love and affection and understanding, then that love propagates to the whole family, and that message gets inherited to children as well, as evidenced by your own children living in Canada and all. So thank you very much, brother, for sharing such wonderful moments of your life and reigniting our own love for Swami inside us. With that, I would like to humbly request our own brother Mahesh Dontam Setti, who is a personification of Seva for us in the center, to come and felicitate you with a shawl. Can you kindly come forward, please? And everybody, please give them a big hand. Thank you. Thank you, Mahesh. Thank you, Brother Fize. So, Brother Fize, we would like to do Aarti now. It's a customary practice for our guests to come and give Aarti as a closing prayers. Thank you. Swami Satya Sai